Welcome back. This is the sixth and final video in this series of videos where we're exploring the speech by Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. at Riverside Church in New York City on April 4, 1967, 1 year to the day before he was shot and killed in Memphis, Tennessee. This speech is connected very closely, I believe, to the current war in Gaza, the war between Israel and Hamas, where more than 20,000 people in Gaza have been killed. Those brothers and sisters of ours, part of the human race, have been killed in response. Most of them civilians, many of them children, a little bit less than half of them children, and then many more people suffering with inhumane conditions, without access to clean drinking water, without access to food or fuel, very limited access to humanitarian needs, to humanitarian resources at this point. All of this in response, of course, to the attack of Hamas on Israel on October 7, where some 1,200 people were killed in really escalation of tensions and conflicts that have taken place in that part of the world for a long time. Dr. King concludes his speech with some very uplifting words, with a challenge for us to move forward, and with a call to love. As I mentioned in the previous video, love is the central thing that drove Dr. King and his ethic of engaging in the world and engaging with compassion and nonviolence in various situations, particularly in relation to the war in Vietnam that he was very outspoken against. Dr. King finishes his speech with a couple of paragraphs that I'd like to share with you here. He says, "I am speaking of that force, love, which all of the great religions have seen as the supreme unifying principle of life. Love is somehow the key that unlocks the door which leads to ultimate reality. This Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Jewish, Buddhist belief about ultimate reality is beautifully summed up in the first epistle of St. John. Let us love one another, for love is God, and everyone that loves is born of God and knows God. He that loves not knows not God, for God is love. If we love one another, God dwells in us, and his love is perfected in us. Let us hope that this spirit will become the order of the day. We can no longer afford to worship the God of hate or bow before the altar of retaliation. The oceans of history are made turbulent by the ever-rising tides of hate, and history is cluttered with the wreckage of nations and individuals that pursued this self-defeating path of hate." That's extremely applicable to the war between Israel and Hamas centered in Gaza right now. Because this is bowing before the altar of retaliation, isn't it? And can you believe that this is just a more turbulent wave in the oceans of history, and that the tides of hate will not subside because of this war, but they will grow? What will happen in 5, 10, 15, 20 years as the children who survive this attack, the children of Gaza, the Palestinian children, grow up into adulthood? What will they do? What will they do next? Will there be retaliation in future years? This madness must cease. Dr. King continues and concludes, "We still have a choice today: nonviolent coexistence or violent co-annihilation. We must move past indecision to action. We must find new ways to speak for peace in Vietnam and justice throughout the developing world, a world that borders on our doors. If we do not act, we shall surely be dragged down the long, dark, and shameful corridors of time reserved for those who possess power without compassion, might without morality, and strength without sight. Now let us begin. Now let us rededicate ourselves to the long and bitter but beautiful struggle for a new world. This is the calling of the children of God, and our brothers and sisters wait eagerly for our response. Shall we say the odds are too great? Shall we tell them the struggle is too hard? Will our message be that the forces of American life militate against their arrival as full adults, and we send our deepest regrets? Or will there be another message of longing, of hope, of solidarity with their yearnings, of commitment to their cause, whatever the cost? The choice is ours. And though we might prefer it otherwise, we must choose in this crucial moment of human history. Friends, we must choose. It may not seem like we have much to do with what's going on in Gaza these days. We don't have influence. We don't have a voice. Maybe we do. I'm using this vehicle. Maybe you can use a vehicle like this too, to speak to your friends and colleagues and people that you know, to encourage them to speak up. We can speak up on behalf of the people of Gaza. We can speak up to our representatives, our senators, our president, our judges, to all of those who had any kind of a role in deliberating on what we should do overseas. We can speak up and say, this is enough. We must see an end to this war, and we must reevaluate our connection to the nation of Israel. When everyone else in the world is saying, let's pause for a moment, and we're saying, no, let's just charge ahead and keep funneling money into the Israeli war machine. Maybe it's time. Maybe it's time for us to take a long look at ourselves, to realize that we have power but must have compassion. We have might but must have morality. We have strength but we must have sight. Maybe it's time for us to make a choice. Choose with me. Thanks for watching, and take care.